most people have most of the story. I would
Nice to
say
see you again, Eric.
it really started when 16 was closed abruptly, the end of last school year. And then the 19th Ward Community Association got involved, lobbied first with City Council, and then we started lobbying with Vargas and the school board. And we were successful in turning around that to say that we get renovated sometime. And sometime it's still up in the future, somewhere in the future. So that was the first sort of battle we fought. Then 10 was going to be closed. Moved to 1, we argued about that one. Then I think it got put on the board that either 1, 10, or 44 would be closed, and 44 lost. For now. And nothing's ever forever. But, I think from my standpoint, the reason I got involved is I lived like 3 blocks away from School 16 and volunteered there. And that was a real convenient. I was actually watching the school. Okay. And what I liked about it is you're volunteering in a school that's in your neighborhood. So when you're walking the dogs, you'd say, "Hi, how you doing?" And when you're in the school, they say, "Well, how are Samantha and Jasmine?" So you know the names of your dogs. And it's a good feeling in terms of that, and that was lost. I mean, I still drove last year to go to 16 over on Stiles Street, but it's not the same as the neighborhood school. And that's really what got me involved in that. If 44 closed first, I'm not sure whether I was planning or not. And now I think there was uncertainty last year with 44. Because there was a meeting at School 44, and Vargas simply said it'll be open next year. And then I don't know. And I think that caused a lot of consternation with people who were trying to plan out at least 2 years. And I tried this year to get Vargas or Malik to say 44 will stay open at least until 16 is open. So the 19th Ward doesn't get down to 2 schools, 29 and 10. He stays with 3. And Malik sort of agreed with that, but didn't really write down, yeah, that's what I'm going to push. It's a good position you guys should have it at least open.
It's been articulated by a school board member, exactly that position, just so you know.
Okay, good.
That was, what I put on the table and articulated when the vote to close 44 was made.
That's right.
But it's, not effective when it's one board member in a, minority position.
And one community member.
So keep the fight.
Yeah, I mean, there's the fight for that, and the other one is that the 19th Ward Schools Committee will be active on. One is getting volunteers in all the schools. The other is when 16 comes back, they will come back as a neighborhood school. And there's a really tough question, I think, is strategic one to deal with. How do you move students around? Are students committed to their neighborhood, or are students committed to a school they've gone to for a few years? I really don't know the answer to that. I think it's if I look at the data, some of the data, they're associated with the school they've been going to. So if you move from here to Charlotte, you still want to go to school here. And that's part of school choice, so you can do that. But it makes for an odd thing. In the School 16 catchment area, there are kids in every elementary school in Rochester. That's out of the same data. It sort of defeats the purpose of the neighborhood school, but again, how do you balance school choice and neighborhood schools?
That's a very valid question or inquiry, because children to go to a school of choice and go to a school of choice, every sibling throughout within their household, And what happens is, the imbalance of registrants sometimes draws away from a community school. So you might have an elementary school, for example, that is in a neighborhood, and the elementary school houses 1,000 registrants, but there's a school of choice that is a couple of miles away, and people are interested in their child going to this school of choice because it's, let's say, a thematic school, a signature school of math, science, and technology, or a STEM high school, or whatever the case may be. And so that draw then essentially bleeds registrants from the neighborhood school and draws them to the school of choice. So having, it is I see exactly what you're saying. That challenge is then, do you, as a school district or as a school board, how do you then draw people back to your community school or your neighborhood school? And in doing so, do you essentially then force families, forced, what I refer to as forced displacement? You had school choice previously. Do you pull them back? That's a tough challenge, because kids, as you know, get used to the schools and the teachers that they're in. So I think this is healthy dialogue to really be reflective about, because ultimately our purpose is to effectively serve our kids and our community, and we want to make sure that the services and the education and the facilities that we're providing are such that they're as good, they're comparatively as good and of the same quality as kids in any other school district would receive.
Well, I know that, I don't think the district has counted it out as an option, because that has, one thing that we have done so far is that this year we have implemented the common curriculum across all of the elementary schools, and now all of the elementary schools have, they each have music, art, PE, instrumentals, chorus. So those things are embedded in the school. So, but we need to make sure that things are equitable as far as the physical spaces and everything, so that we, if there's a chance that the district does decide to go to community schools, that the basic pieces want to make sure that there's equity across the schools, across all locations, because even if you go to community schools, the students still should have access to everything that, whether their community is higher socioeconomic or lower socioeconomic, each area, each community school should have access to just about everything as another community, as another school does. So I think right now, because we have such a diverse group of schools and the school choice, we would definitely have to sit down and talk about that. There are some research around community schools. I'm sure you guys have done your research, where there is some pros, lots of pros to community schools, where he talks about, as far as caring for the property of the schools, and what are schools in the community that, you can get the whole community, to have buy-in, and the children can be part of community programs. So there is pros and cons to it, but I think right now, because of the makeup of the district, it's great dialogue, like Ray's saying, we have to have community, dialogue around it, but I haven't heard that they have counted it out, at all.
Well, actually, the opposite. I mean, the superintendent has articulated a commitment to neighborhood schools,
Right,
maximizing
exactly.
neighborhood schools as a choice.
Right.
But at the same time, not eliminating, the citywide schools. And my position on this is that we don't even really have to we don't even have to answer the question, should we make all neighborhood schools? Because we haven't put the policies in place or put the energy and commitment in place to really promote neighborhood schools as a choice within the mixed system. So like this walking school bus idea, this committee that's been meeting to nurture School 16 and, you know, other schools in the neighborhoods those are all measures that will help hopefully promote neighborhood school choice. And what we don't have is what you would expect if it was pure inequity driving people's choices out of the neighborhood into a different neighborhood school. What we have is total, utter chaos. When you have, you know, which school did you say has every single catchment area? Is it 16?
Yeah.
Represented? So, I mean,
Others
there's a
may as
lot
well.
of random placement. And our placement office has improved dramatically. They're really, really, really doing a good job. But at the same time, I know many parents experience placement as a more mechanical process as opposed to like a passionate, you know, this school is close to you and it really is good. Like, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to about school too. Because I would be happy to send my girls to school too. I know there's been leadership change, but that's, you know, it's not a bad leadership, you know, whatever. I mean, we don't have to go into the details, but school too, my daughter went to pre-K there. And, you know, with the Rochester Roots connection and the community basis there and, you know, really strong commitment. I've talked to a lot of people individually and they've actually placed their kids at school too. But in the placement process, other, you know, higher level people in placement would probably have those kind of conversations if these parents work themselves up the chain. But we have to do, I don't know what kind of training or, how we can put the passion into the placement counseling process to really encourage people not to just randomly pick a school that's more than a mile and a half away. Because, I mean, I think we can make a big dent in
But
shifting that 25% to, you know, we should talk about goals. You know, like what, our neighborhood schools, what percent would we like to see within the catchment?
Is the closing of buildings and reopening others an opportunity to do that, or is that be complicated?
So,
So I was thinking clearly in terms of when 16 opens and 44 is still open, or whatever the case may be, you know, where does the student draw from? And what do you do, and then when you close a building, where do those kids go?
I think the kids at 16 would be happy to come back to Post for the most part.
Well, not the student,
What? They like to swim?
somebody.
Well, then we gotta get Swan straightened out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swan?
The
Yeah.
school wasn't open all summer.
Oh, the,
At Madison.
Swimming pool.
Madison,
Yeah.
whatever it's called. Well, Swan,
Yeah.
nobody knows what's going on
Yeah.
with Swan. Because I've been in the band and
Yeah, one of the things that, you know, has been going on for, well, at the last meeting, I had invited Stacy Colapret, who is heading up, or who is part of the group that is starting the Venture Partners.
Vision Quest.
Vision Quest, God, what am I saying? Vision Quest, thank you. Which is the intention is to have it be a teacher-led school within the district that, first time we heard about it, it sounded like it was gonna be a charter school, but that's not their intention at all. And they came and talked to the Southwest Common Council back in July, she and one of her colleagues, and it sounded like this might be something that would be worth having them talk with School 44, because the impression I get in, you know, what we've heard from the superintendent, what we hear from board members is, gee, we've got 5 schools that we've got a gun pointed to our head saying you need to close 5 schools, and you know, gee, we tried to do 16 and 10, and now 44 seems to be in the crosshairs. So is there anything we can do to make find some way of creatively using some of these charter-like school efforts within the district to perhaps meld that with School 44 and have them possibly adopt that school. Of course, it's easier said than done, and living in the ward and saying, gee, it would be nice eventually to have 4 neighborhood schools in this ward that have predominantly neighborhood school kids in them. Anyways, I had invited Stacy to come and talk at the August Southwest Common Council Education Committee meeting, and I sent out an email to some of the teachers, and Mary connected with one more who sent it out to the school, I guess, and we had a great turnout at that meeting. We had at least 8 teachers plus, a number of other 8 teachers from 44, and it was a very lively discussion, and there was some, as Stacy was describing what they're trying to do, well, you were at the meeting, Robin, and, is there some possibility of looking at doing something like that? We've done great things in the district that's starting up these charter schools or magnet schools, and you get a magnet school and it works well, and instead of replicating it, like School 10, the objective was to send it over to School 1 where there aren't any kids in that neighborhood. Why not have a successful school there? And if you want to have another expeditionary learning school in some other quadrant, do that. But anyways, with my hope was that we might be able to find some way of working that program, Vision Quest, or something else that try some innovative processes at School 44, and that might be a good reason to keep it there. Because if you look at the feeder pattern map, there are kids in each of the school feeder patterns, enough kids that you need those schools there. And the only reason we aren't keeping those schools open, or saying if we have to close this building, we have to build a new one right there because we have kids there that need it, is that we're spending this inordinate amount of money on busing, which was something that got started with noble purposes, namely integration, and has become something that really is hurting our schools because it separates parents from the schools that their kids attend. We've got to do something to try to save the schools in the areas where there are students.
So John's theory of really looking at a school and trying to make a determination if you can do something different with it is really a common theory. There are really three frameworks of thinking around really taking a look at when you're going to propose, and by the way, it needs to be based on a comprehensive set of data points when you're proposing to close a school. Usually there are 3 options. One option is to close a school, or what I refer to as shutter the school. And these are three pieces or 3 theories that are used throughout the country. And shuttering a school is literally closing the doors, locking the doors, chaining them shut, and not using that site for any purpose other than possibly, let's see, we make apartments out of schools sometimes, or the buildings are sold, et cetera, right? That's one option.
Or give it back to the city.
Or give it back to the city. I'm talking generally, and I'm just kind of sharing, the information that I know. The other is really something that kind of speaks to what John referenced, and that is essentially, depending on the condition of the school. I'm not referring to the physical condition necessarily, but I'm referring to the progress-specific or assessment-driven condition of the school. Sometimes what ends up happening is a school is quote-unquote closed, not shuttered physically, but closed, and you reconstitute a new school, if you will, within the confines of that building proper. The third option oftentimes is closing the actual site, again, dependent upon what the condition, the physical condition of the site is and what the overall community-specific and district-based objectives are. Closing the site, and if you want to maintain the school, i.e. and I'll reference 44 because we've referenced 44 a couple of times this evening. Taking Mr. DeRose and and Mr. Freeman and their entire faculty and staff, and shifting them to another site that's more community service oriented, because of, let's say, one of the variables that might be born out of an FMP study, right, a longitudinal study. So those are really kind of the three theories or theoretical frameworks. The variables that come into play in making those decisions really revolve around one, community need. You know, what does that particular area of the community, what are their needs? And that might include, by the way, really taking a look at, I know a couple of people here know Dr. Spezio, looking at the number 17 school model and looking at a full service school-based center, making your school the center of the community, and taking a step back and saying, can we replicate number 17 school, number 33 school, for example, having a school health clinic right in our school to best serve our school community and our kids. That immediacy is quite important. So can a number 44 school house, let's say, a community health clinic, for example? And based on the FMP data, is it a structure proper that is such that you would want to feed monies into it to provide our community an assurance that, yes, we can holistically provide the services that you deserve in as comprehensive a manner as the district can. And of course, that involves also partners that we work with oftentimes on a daily basis. Of course, you know, the physical structure is something, you know, that those feasibility studies around, is this a structure that we can grow out? Is this a structure that is even usable, let's say, 10, 12, 15 years down the road? Because you also want it to be a consistently and sustainably safe structure for our kids and our faculty and staff. So that's something that needs to come into play as well. One of the other variables, and I'm just sharing based on my experiences, one of the other variables that comes into play is really longitudinal registrant data, and really taking a look at over the course of time, a snapshot in time, whether it's 5 years or even a 10-year window. Have the registrants gone down, and what are the factors that have affected registrant trends? So those are some pieces that are core to the decision-making process, and those are just a few, but they're very important for us, I think, as a collective, to not only know and to consider, but to really think about, because ultimately it gets back to, and I think we're all here, because it gets back to figuring out how we can best serve our kids. One of the other variables that popped into our laps literally Monday morning that I think we all are compelled to really keep, I won't even say on the back burner, and this is our responsibility, the educator's responsibility, focusing on increasing equitable access, and Juliet referenced the equitable access component earlier, but really thinking about how we're ramping up our programs and services to our kids in each and every one of our schools. My intent, my expectation is that I have no plans to relinquish quote-unquote control, lowercase c, to the New York State Education Department or the state of New York, because I believe as educators and as community members, we can best serve our kids. And we know our kids and we know our community members. So I'm of the mindset that I would prefer to maintain the locus of control amongst our board and amongst our community members and faculty, staff, and administration, as opposed to having what could interpretively be an imposition placed upon us and saying, well, we're going to take over. We're not professional educators, but we're going to take over.
Well, that's good to hear, because I think that we certainly have the impression sometimes that, the shots being called in Albany as far as some of the school closing issues here. I know that they're dangling some money that we need for renovating schools, but
That's the important piece to that is, because as you know, the commissioner has visited Buffalo recently and really looked at, again, one of those lines in the sand and saying, essentially, I told you to do something about it, you didn't do something about it, so we're going to do something about it. And I'm confident, I've been back in the district for, I think this is about 6 weeks now, and I came back to this district knowing in my heart and in my gut that we can do this. We can transform this organization. We have a lot of caring people in this organization. We've got some highly experienced and educated people in this organization, both within the community and within our school district and within the city, quite frankly, with the partnerships that we've established. And I know that we can turn this around. It's a matter of taking a step back and pulling the right levers to make it happen.
But I think it's important for community people to recognize that there are definitely, forces at work and powerful forces that are trying to extract, their own mainly financial benefit from public education. And that as community members, we have to recognize those forces and educate ourselves about that and speak truthfully about that. The district officials, the administration are in a very, very, very tough spot in terms of pressure that's being applied, the pressure for compliance, but in terms of community truth, and understanding the power dynamics, we have to understand that the measures that are being used to label us as failing are not appropriate, and we need to educate ourselves about that and speak strongly against a death penalty for focus and priority schools. My daughter is in a death penalty school. No, she's not. She's in a school where she's learning really well. It's a small, caring community. Everyone is working together. They're learning despite what some state test scores may show. And you have to really question the governor's motives when he's saying that this death penalty or conversion into charter schools or closures of schools in Rochester, Buffalo, the Big Five, when he's saying that he's talking a very short timeline, he's been explicit about that, like within the next year, when we just got done hearing him rationalize these tests that people were not taught the material for as being a baseline. We're supposed to accept our kids being abused with tests that they were not prepared for. The pressure, the inability to complete those tests. Oh, it's okay, it's just a baseline. Then a month later, like at the same time, the talking points are overlapping in time. Now we're saying we're on a very short schedule for closure. So what kind of time frame do you need to assess those baseline scores? Now, and that's not even questioning the whole entire framework of the tests and the APPR and so on, which I question and I don't believe are valid. But you really, really have to question exactly what's going on and for what reason. And I don't believe it's for the benefit of our children. And I don't believe it's for the benefit of our neighborhoods.
So school turnaround, even in its most expeditious fashion, being as thoughtful as an organization can be, school turnaround, and there's multiple data points and cluster of research out there. You need a minimum of 3 years, and that's a minimum, because you can't, as you know, recraft or recreate aspects of an organization and expect significant change without having opportunity to reflect not only on the data, but reflect on the progress that you've made, and then in turn take a step back and make determinations as to what's an effective practice and what's a practice that has potentially been a roadblock, right? So I would concur with Commissioner Adams in that really you need time. You need time to turn around a school or a set of schools or transform schools. School transformation more often than not does not happen within a 1 year time frame.
Well, in the change process, the cycle of the change process, if you think about the change process, and when you go into and start a change, by the time it gets to the 3rd year is when you really see things start to turn the corner, because in the change process, it's like you'll take 2 steps forward and you have to stop, assess, and then you may have to go back and, look at some things and do some things different. But like, I definitely feel, know that we've got a great team that Dr. Vargas put together, and I truly can visualize in a few years, if we stay the course, that Rochester will make great strides in the right directions, and I could definitely see us as one of those districts that, will be making history, or they'll be writing about it. I definitely feel like because that we've laid the core curriculum down, we're moving in the right directions. We're doing things, we're starting to do things that, highly effective school, put systems and practices into place that we know that highly effective schools, that make highly effective schools and school districts. However, it is going to take, a change in the culture and in the mindset. And because we have the Common Core now, when rigor increases, 9 times out of 10, the performance of students in urban cities usually decrease until we can get used to putting things in place where we get the children to start thinking that way, we start teaching in that way. So this past year was really the year of implementation. But I think, going forward, and the conversations we're having, the data we're looking at, when we're looking at children and we're saying, well, hey, when we had our school walkthroughs, we realized there were 3 areas that we needed to focus on. So we know what those 3 main areas are, so we're gonna start focusing on it. So we're really looking deeper, and just dissecting and unpacking things and trying to find the root cause of things right now. But I think, I know for sure, and I definitely feel like we're on the right track. It's just not gonna happen overnight, because we have we have some BHAGs, or big, hairy, audacious goals that we have set before us, things that we need to put together to make it happen. But I definitely feel good about it.
And the corollary to that, by the way, is also in any environment where you're expecting change. In our schools, we have to. So this is the parallel to some of the pieces that we've been talking about. We have to continue to maintain and sustain a sense of urgency on behalf of our kids and our families also. We have to make sure that every aspect of the work that we're doing, I'll use some of the conversations I've had with the principals I work with. Mr. DeRose could reinforce this, I'm sure. Foundational early literacy skill development, looking at getting books, getting resources into our homes, resource accessibility, making sure, one of the mantras that we've been talking about, and Dr. Vargas has referenced, and this is something that we're going to be talking about with every single one of our elementary schools, making sure that our kids and our families have a library card. We have libraries, talk about proximity, we have libraries within walking distance, within a number of our schools, as you know. These are very important aspects of partnerships that not only have we developed within the context of our city, but really taking a look at how we can provide increased access and exposure to foundational literacy-related resources and materials for our families and our kids. This is at the core of every aspect of the work that we must be doing in this district. And establishing that sense of urgency is essential. It's key. And I know that we can get there. Again, we have some wonderful people. We truly do. And I'm confident that we'll get there. Transformation, again, it takes time. That doesn't mean we have 10 years. It really, we have to take a step back, and I'm convinced that we can look at some aspects of turnaround within an 8, 10, 12-month window, and other components are extended out thereafter. But we can do this. I'm confident of that.
I'm curious because these two gentlemen have been here and had a few comments early on. This is the first year you've been the principal there at 44?
Yes.
Yeah. I just would like their perspective of 44 school. Again, it's pretty hard for you. You just started there, but you talked about some hopeful thoughts that you had early on. And your colleague here would like to add something to it. I just hate to have the meeting go on without giving you an opportunity to talk about what you heard.
Well, Mr. Freeman and I have had many chats past couple of days. Today was an actual first day back for our students. Therefore, the voice, trying to set the tone going into, Mr. Freeman and I have gone into every classroom at the upper end because we are a kindergarten through grade 8 building. Well, technically pre-K to grade 8. So we started with our upperclassmen this morning. We've spent a good 25 to 30 minutes in each room getting the message across that what we are all about as educators and as individuals, and building a culture based on respect, trust, and love. And that's what we were talking to our students about, and how they have to respect themselves, their peers, their teachers, and how that when they give respect, they should expect it in return. And then within that framework, Mr. Freeman and I also basically established our expectations as the administration of School 44. Did our students ask about the possible closure? Our older children did. They did ask about it, and in a way that, okay, you're giving this positive message to us, but we're gonna close anyway, was what one student said this morning. And our response was not if we have anything to do about it. We're not gonna focus on the negative. So as Dr. Giamartino was stating earlier, then I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Freeman, is we are not gonna dwell on the negative. We're keeping a focus on effective instructional practices, as we met with our teaching staff yesterday. And Mr. Freeman and I felt very energized by the feedback we got from the staff, that they crafted, that staff at 44 crafted a springboard as to where we need to go this year together as a group of people dedicated to children in that building.
Our last meeting in August, several of the teachers from 44 were there, and they had a very positive attitude and talked about specific things that they've done as a classroom teacher. So, I mean, from my take on that, it sounded like their staff is really committed to doing what you just talked about, keeping the school open and making it work, so.
And that's our motivation. And part of our conversation with our students, our upper class students, was to, we're going to motivate and compel them to develop an intrinsic desire to want to learn, to take ownership of their learning, and to give the community, give our district, give our board a reason to not close our school. How are you going to justify closing one of the schools that outperform in other schools? That's our charge and that's our challenge, and they embrace that today. You're going to be a part of a legacy in this community. I was the 8th grader who contributed to keeping this school open, and that's the message that we're moving forward with.
Yeah, I would encourage all of you to take a look at some of the videos that are on Location 19, well, they're on YouTube, but there are links to them in the minutes from the last meeting. The teachers that were here, the teachers that were at the meeting last month did a great job of, talking quite passionately about the effect that the possible closing of 44 would have on the kids. A lot of these kids are refugees from various countries that have come to this country, and they have quite a lot of English learners at School 44, and here we are going to make them refugees again by closing the school that they've become part of. I think that the points they were making were quite valid and well made. A lot of the whole presentation that Stacy Colapret made for Vision Quest is on as a separate video, and then some of the discussions we had around School 44 are there. So it's we've been trying as part of the Southwest Common Council to try to keep this school education committee as transparent as possible. Anybody's welcome. We post it on Location 19 each month. I send out invitations to God knows how many people. And sometimes we have great output, turnout like last month, and then some months like this one when I'm too stupid to look at when is the first day of school. We have a lot of devoted teachers who've been working hard trying to make sure that it's a successful first day. So we had about 20 at the last meeting, and we're down a little bit this week. But we're trying to make sure that, through the meeting notes, through videos in some cases, that we make the information transferable from one month to the next, so that if somebody can't make it one month, they see it. So we certainly would encourage people to try to keep track of what's been posted, and hopefully we can pass information from people who may have a good idea to people who could use it. So.
I'd just like to say, bring up one thing that really bothers me a lot, and it's the little kids. A lot of them are coming from shaky backgrounds, never mind the ones that don't speak English. They're coming from shaky backgrounds where they don't have the greatest support systems, maybe. And it seems to me that, kind of intuitively, the school ought to be providing them physical and emotional safety, comfort, stability that they're not going to find maybe anywhere else in their environment. And starting with the littlest ones. The smaller, the younger they are, the more important that is. To get them in some kind of a structure where they're safe and they know everybody, they know their classmates and their teachers and everybody in the school, and they know that they're going to be there for the next 5 years. Not that, School 44 is going to close next year anyway, so why bother? I'm sure the little ones aren't thinking that way, but the effect on them is going to be the same.
Little kids are smart enough.
Well, it's intuitive and literature bears it out. And it's especially important in economically disadvantaged populations, that the kids need structure and safety, physical safety, mental, emotional safety. It's a big, big deal. And a lot of the decisions that I've seen made in the past year have been appalling, frankly, from that point of view. We took number 16 school and shipped them across town, and they're not even in the same area of the building. They're scattered out all over through this big building. They don't know anybody. Everybody's bigger than they are. So decisions seem to be made on economics. Number one, there's a lot of bean counters involved, and politics that goes on over my head that I'm not privy to. But it seems like a lot of the decisions are not made with that little kid, that fourth grader, that kindergartner, not made with that little kid in mind. And that's the first thing you should be thinking of. Is this going to be good for that little kid? Never mind what's it going to cost or who I'll have to get a signature from. What's the best thing for that kid?
Can I just, one quick question? What's his name, Dr. King, the big commissioner in Albany?
Yeah, the one who-
Yeah, well, what is he, what's his cure-all for Buffalo?
Charters.
In other words, he's not gonna do a thing about the school. You know, this death penalty, I don't understand it. I just don't get what they're trying to do.
Trying to privatize public education. And we're in a certain stage of that process. And if we don't see ourselves in a war for public education, it's just happening to us. We don't, so fighting for schools in neighborhoods where there are high concentrations of families with school-aged children who need public education, that's like part of it. But a lot of times we don't see it as part of a longer, more comprehensive struggle.
And that's what King wants to do?
Yes. In my opinion. People may have, people may have a little more nuanced, set of explanations,
I
but
mean, he has all
basically
this-
he's coming from, he was a head of a charter, network or organization,
I see.
association. He doesn't have a ton of other educational background, but he is definitely part of the movement to privatize public education.
And there's a lot of money.
He has his
a lot
Merrill
of money
Tisch, the
driving that.
chancellor.
Alvin, will you?
No, I just said there's a lot of money driving that to go to
So
charter
he
schools.
doesn't really have anything to offer for public education?
That side of the table can't really respond that way. I will
Yeah,
say that that's my opinion. They may, if they may want to argue, I don't know, putting people in
No, I
our
mean, you're
position,
putting, yeah,
but
we're putting you on the spot because
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like.
I don't support that, but I'm just saying, that's what's driving people like Mr. King and others, I believe. This seems to be, when you look at what motivates decisions that don't seem to make a lot of sense, follow a money trail and you'll start to find some of the answers.
When it's money, you said then
Yeah.
you get the answers when you look at it.
Yeah, if you follow the money trail,
Yeah, even Cuomo?
yes.
I thought he was a good guy.
yeah. One of the things that I hope that
it's 5 after 8.
we will. Yeah, they're going to be. We have a reprieve if you're in no rush. One of the things that I'm hoping is that we can get, a real partnership between parents and community organizers and teachers and administrators, and be really talking together to try to define a way to the right solution, because it's, you know, it's easy to give up, and there are an awful lot of parents who have, over the years, fought the noble fight and been beat back by, you know, the city school district that seems too big to accomplish change in. And I think from everything that I've seen from the people that I've talked to at various meetings, you know, everybody's trying to do the right thing and do a good job, but they're all looking at it from their perspective, and the more interaction we can get between people, hopefully the more we find some good solutions. So I encourage you, all of the meetings we've had are documented in meeting notes, and if you read through something and you see something that should be clarified, or that there's some opinion that perhaps needs some, you know, some clarification, some different viewpoint, you're welcome to post replies. Each of the meeting minutes is set up as a discussion topic on Location 19 and in the Southwest Education Forum. And the more dialogue we get between teachers, parents, administrators, the more likely we are to find a good solution. And I was impressed with some of this. Robin gave a presentation a couple of meetings ago about his work at School 33, and you know, he had a very good interaction with the teachers union when he was working there, from what you said, and you know, I think that's something that was kind of news to me, because you always hear from one side or the other, well, the unions are going to be keeping that from happening. Well, we need to really be talking to everybody and assume that everybody's trying to do a good job, and that we just need to find a good solution. Anyways, you're welcome. You know, I would encourage you to join the Location 19 and the Southwest Education Forum and contribute. And if you have any ideas for things we should be looking for, topics to discuss, great. You know, I was hoping to see quite a few people from the Plex community at this meeting, but they were busy taking their kids to school, very likely. One of the big problems we run into is that the people who are the most motivated to get involved in things like this, the parents, they're usually, you know, working 1 or 2 jobs and rushing around trying to take care of the kids. And I keep hoping we get a lot of grandparents involved, but we just need to keep working at it. Is there anything else that you know, I think everything that was discussed at the last meeting, and there was a lot of good stuff from Stacy and from the teachers, you can review it if you'd like. And anything else that you can think of, John?
I had a brief interaction. I did an email with Stacy, and they haven't met since our last meeting.
Mhm.
With that group. So I don't know. I think there's a plan to meet sometime this month.
Oh, good.
But I'm not sure who they're meeting with, but just so you know, there's no report back from Stacy because they haven't met.
Yeah, I talked with her briefly last night, and between vacations and all the teachers she's involved with rushing around trying to get ready for the first day of school, they haven't had a chance to do too much talking within their own group or to connect with 44, but she was hoping to have that start up.
Mhm.
Great. Anything else, John?
I may have something for the next meeting, but I'm not gonna even talk about it till I get more information.
Okay.
So I don't wanna.
Just for a little clarification, and we talked a lot about 19th Ward schools, and John Lang is the committee chair for the 19th Ward Community Association School Committee. John Boutte is the co-chair of the Southwest Common Council
Education
Committee, and that encompasses all of the schools in the Southwest Quadrant. So that's how the fits together, kind of.
We've been primarily dealing in the 19th Ward, because that's where the
That's where we are.
That's where the bullseye was located, so, but I'm sure that, you know, as things develop, some of the other schools will get involved also. And,
If we say 44 and they cut another school, then that school's gonna become involved too.
Well, let's see if that doesn't happen.
It's a domino effect. Wait a minute. A year ago, we were sitting in some meeting room and hearing that School 44 was gonna be completely renovated, top to bottom, brand new, state of the art. And this year, sorry, 44 is closing. I mean, I just don't understand where the decisions come from.
44 was never going to be a top side brand new renovation.
I heard
well,
you say that
there
once.
was at one point when we started fighting closing 16, there was some talk about having 16 and 44 combined in some mega school.
New structure.
They were gonna build a whole new structure, which, you know, we've been fighting in part for trying to keep schools small, you know, and especially in
to a certain extent, but not as like a state of the
poor neighborhoods. It really reduces the likelihood that the kids perform well if it's too big a school.